11th, 2020 Common Council meeting is virtually started. This is our third virtual meeting by executive order by Indiana Governor Holcomb. We can have virtual meetings, and this will be our third one. This meeting is the first one we'll have public input where the public can either write in or comment. And I'll have Clerk Jones, before we get into the business, state those instructions. Right now, I'd like to turn it over to the invocation to Councilmember Jake Teshka. Mr. Teshka, would you please start? Thank you.
Yes, if everybody would pray with me. Father God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for bringing us together virtually. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity that you've presented us to meet in this way. Father, we thank you for our very breath. And your word, Psalm 150, says, let everything that has breath praise the Lord. And Lord, we are ever more cognizant of every day that we wake up with breath again in these times. Father, we pray that you would give us wisdom as we move through this meeting and make decisions on behalf of the residents of the city of South Bend. We pray that you would be with all those who are ill, Lord, all those who are hurting because of the economic crisis that is going on right now in our country. We pray that you would help us as leaders in this city to empathize and to be with those people in spirit and also in deed. And Father, we just pray that you would bless us as we move forward from this meeting. And we pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Thank you, Mr. Teshka. Ms. Jones, would you please read roll call?
Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Davis.
Henry's here. I'm here. I'm just having problems, but I got it going through. I'm here.
Okay.
Dawn.
Okay. Councilmember McBride. Councilmember McBride. Okay, I'll come back. Okay. Councilmember Warner.
Here.
Councilmember Teshka.
Here.
Councilmember Nisgowsky.
I'm here.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan.
Present.
Councilmember Hammond.
Present.
Vice President White.
Present.
President Scott.
Present.
Okay. I will move with reading the announcement. Good evening, members of the public and council members. For audio quality, we will be muting everyone not speaking by default to maintain good audio quality for council and yourselves. If you would like to speak during the meeting on a specific agenda item, public, please submit your request in the chat. Directions to do so are in the chat. We ask that you provide your full name and address, as those are required for all speakers at in-person council meetings. For citizens that wish to speak during the privilege of the floor, please insert the following in the chat, and the council president will call on you during the relevant time for public input. Again, my name is, and state your full name and you live at which address, and you will then be given 3 minutes to speak. Please be sure to unmute yourself prior to giving your remarks. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Is there a subcommittee on minutes?
We have them, but I don't think I got them to you.
Nope, that's fine. We need to work that out. That's one of the
Yeah, I meant to
hurdles
mention
of
that to you earlier.
this. We'll talk offline on that.
Mr. President, this is Grant from the clerk's office. Just as a point of information, they are in fact done and revised. They just haven't gotten to the subcommittee on minutes, so they are finished. They just haven't been examined by them.
Understood. Now we'll move to special business. I've asked Mayor James Mueller to come and talk about COVID and anything else city related, while we had a full meeting on that 2 weeks ago. while we had a meeting on that 2 weeks ago, this is going to be a briefer version of this. It'll just be a quick update, and we'll go down the line, 2 questions each from council. And Mr. Mayor, are you with us?
I am, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, council members. Mayor James Mueller, within my office on the 14th floor of the County City building. And excuse me if I'm dodging here. There's the sun. We know summer's coming near, even though the weather doesn't seem like it right now, because the sun looking due west comes through even the blinds. And so I'm trying to avoid that directly into my eyes here. So if you see me shifting around, that's why. I will be brief, given that we went through a pretty comprehensive overview of where things were and where we thought we were going. The first most notable thing is that quite a shift from just 2 weeks ago, where many of us thought that given where the data was and where the trends were going, that we would still be under a stay-at-home order right now, at least through this week, if not beyond. And so that clearly did not happen. And so there was a change in strategy by the higher levels of government, where the first strategy that everyone was on board with was, let's contain this first wave, let's set up the testing and contact tracing infrastructure that was necessary to keep us safe and prevent future outbreaks for the rest of the year without ever having to shut down the economy again. And that's not where we ended up going. And so here we're, health officials and health experts, we never fully got past this first wave. And given that we're opening up, there's a risk of this extended first wave to continue to accelerate over the coming weeks. So the best analogy is we're in the eye of the storm right now, and we hope that when the rest of the storm comes, it'll be manageable, and we're going to find ways to try to prevent us from overwhelming our health care systems like we were all concerned about a couple months ago. The threat has not changed substantially, and although our testing capacity is up, our infrastructure to contain it is not where a lot of experts thought we needed to be. A quick update on the emergency declaration. That is continued in the executive order I issued last week. We continued that, and council, the last resolution that you passed, you continued it indefinitely. Given that we're still in a state of emergency, I'm not looking to end that anytime soon, and hope that you will stick with that piece of it. The component that did expire at midnight earlier today was the travel advisory. And one reason I extended it through last week, but one reason why it was set to expire is that in the governor's executive order, he limited the ability of different counties and cities to enforce the travel advisory. So without it being enforceable, thought it was prudent to extend to just get the messaging out that even though everyone's talking about reopening, the threat still exists and we need to be vigilant. But now it's not enforceable, and so we have to look at other pieces. The state testing site at the Armory is up and running. It's going through some growing pains, but that should add to our local testing capacity as we reopen further. And the state's contact tracing program will be online hopefully later this week. It's starting to come online, but more so later this week. With the volumes we have right now, our local health officials feel confident that we can cover right now with our local contact tracing until that goes into place, which is good. And we are also preparing for needs for contact tracing if we do go up a curve that none of us want to see here in the next couple of months. That contact tracing and testing capacity go hand in hand, and so we'll continue to push at our higher levels to unlock the testing capacity to be able to manage future outbreaks. And so our best tools that we have remaining are encouraging people to behave responsibly. The health department's order on masks, certainly for indoor or when they're going into an indoor space, and especially when you can't maintain physical distance, those are all positive measures that can help contain the spread. If you look across the world, the countries that implemented masks early on fared very well during the first wave. And so, the research is not fully clear, but it seems to be something that will limit the spread even as we reopen. And then the second or the next piece is making sure our local health officials are looking at the expansion of social gathering size. So we went from 10 during the stay-at-home order to 25 with the governor's executive order in the current phase, and then it ratchets up until 250 by June, and then when we're supposed to be fully open by July 4th, there is no limit any longer. And so that means, for example, that the Brickyard 400 on July 5th, that has oftentimes 500,000 people, would be allowed to go forward. Now, locally, our anchor institution, the University of Notre Dame, has postponed events of that size beyond. There's a Billy Joel concert and other things. If people are planning here to have events well above 250, there needs to be some caution to that, just given that we don't know where we're going to be in the next couple months. And so working with the local health officials to get some sort of clarity so that businesses can plan when they're seeing what everyone else is seeing, does that mean that there will be further restrictions from the local health department? In terms of the city plan to reopen, essential services continued uninterrupted through the stay-at-home order. VPA is the main department, but other departments too are working on finalizing a phased reopening plan that takes into account how things proceed in the next few weeks. Remote work continues to be, for those who can work from home, continues to be mandated, and we see that for the next several weeks. We'll revisit as we see what happens as the rest of our community opens up and where the curve goes. And so we imagine that there will be those who can work from home will have the option extended beyond whenever we do bring people back here. Our boards and commissions who weren't considering essential business, much like the Common Council, is following suit, and we'll start processing those business items in the coming weeks. And then finally, for the COVID piece, is we really need to also turn attention to the targeted economic assistance. In the coming weeks, we'll have a better sense of what the fallout is from the stay-at-home orders and this first wave, and start to see how we can move people forward, both residents and our small local businesses. Other items that we're looking to move forward, we're excited for the council and the school board to take up the resolution and potential joint committee and following up on our historic meeting from February. So look forward to that resuming in the coming weeks. From public safety side, we are looking to start putting out a little more of a roadmap for the reform agenda that's been discussed over the past several months, as well as something where we're looking to move forward some compensation adjustments for our sworn police officers. This is not anything related to the COVID situation. It's related to the fact that we have a shortage of officers, and our compensation had fallen behind where we needed to be. The proposal being considered is all within the existing budget, so there is not a request for additional dollars for 2020, just looking to start making progress on the overall compensation. And then finally, we're looking for economic development. The things on the agenda tonight are exciting that projects are still moving forward despite all of the economic uncertainty that the COVID crisis has brought. And so we're excited to keep those going forward, and we'll look to see who else is still willing and able to invest in our community throughout the recovery. So with that, we'll open up to any questions you have.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. We'll go down, starting with the second district and work our way down per districts. Mr. Henry Davis, do you have a couple questions for the mayor or a comment?
Tim, and thank you, Mayor, for your for being present at the council meeting. We look forward to seeing you in the future.
Nothing else, Henry? I didn't catch your first part.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? Hello?
We can hear you.
You got me? Okay. No, I said I didn't have any questions at all. I said thank you, Mayor, for coming and speaking with us, and I look forward to seeing you in the future.
Thank you, sir. We'll turn to the third district, Ms. McBride.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much. Couple questions. One, you talked about capacity and you talked about the Armory being a new site. I know that they're independent of what the health department is doing. However, from my understanding, the impact of their testing is not increasing the overall availability of testing in general. I think we were talking about trying to test about 400 people a day, and I'm thinking that number is only at about 300, or the capacity of 300 to 350. Do you know why and if that number is going to increase?
So the numbers could potentially increase if there's a long answer to this. The numbers could potentially increase if those supply chain issues are solved, and there is a strategy that opens up testing to more individuals. Right now, the testing has remained limited to those who are exhibiting symptoms for the most part, and confirmed symptoms. And so it would increase, of course, if our numbers went up, which wouldn't be necessarily a good thing for us. And it could increase if we change the strategy in terms of who's eligible for tests. Right now, I haven't gotten strong indication that we're moving forward generally as a state or as a country to expanding testing beyond this limited pool in general. So there are a lot of things that have to go into this, and of course, that's what experts had said we needed to reopen safely and be able to continue to stay open without facing an uptick in cases. So we're going to continue to push testing and tracing as best we can and hope we can avoid a nightmare scenario that we were able to do so far.
Secondly, I know we talked about masks, and we were having a discussion about trying to get masks with like city logo or emblem. And I talked to you and Casey about that. Do you know if there was any movement on that? If not, I could follow up with you all.
Yeah, I believe Aaron Perry, who worked on the shirts from VPA, is working on that as well. So we can follow up and get you the status on where that sits.
And lastly, are we working on getting face masks as a city for all, enough for all city employees? That's my final question.
I'll have to check. We did get masks for the essential workers, the face coverings masks for essential workers. I'll have to see, but yeah, I mean, we can make sure that they have access to the ability to come to work and be safe.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. McBride. We'll turn to 4th District, Mr. Troy Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I look forward to seeing you in person in the council chambers. And I think I don't have any questions. I commend you. Your communications have improved drastically from 6 weeks ago. I commend you with that. I think messaging is getting out and things like that. And I agree. Until we get to a point where we can test beyond just people who have symptoms, we really won't know what our grasp is on this. You can see that just by some of the meat packing plants. They've gone in and tested all employees, and they've found that like 80% of people testing positive have no symptoms. Some of the prisons and jails have done the same thing. So I think until we get to that point where, and it's going to happen at a national level, otherwise we're all fighting each other for the same supplies, right? The same PPE, same thing with PPE. I think we won't have a grasp on really how things have spread until that happens. But I continue to urge to push to that. And I think as important as the number of tests is the turnaround on the tests. Getting a test result in under 24 hours or 24 hours is great. We've come a long way from 6 weeks ago where it was 12 days we were waiting, but it's tough on the individual, on the employer, on the company, on the families when you're waiting 36, 96 hours for a test. So I think that's also something we keep in mind as we move forward. But thank you for coming to see us and talk to us.
Thank you, Mr. Warner. We'll turn to the 5th District, Mr. Teshka.
Yeah, I don't have any questions at this point. I would agree with Councilmember Warner that communication has been great and has improved. And I'd like to also thank Councilmember McBride for her daily updates. So I think we're all staying pretty well informed. Hence not having any questions at this point. But I do, and to I guess piggyback off of Mr. Warner again, in terms of talking about these mass tests that are showing up 80% non-symptomatic. I'll be interested to see the Fairbanks study when that comes back as well, and being able to see how many folks are have been exposed and asymptomatic to this. So I think that's going to be a big factor moving forward. But no questions at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Teshka. We'll turn to Ms. Nagodsky.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the updates. As everybody said, the communication has been really good. I kind of want to elaborate just a little bit on what Councilwoman McBride said. I guess my question is, if we know how long the Armory is going to stay open, I know that is Indiana State Department of Health test site, and in their strategy with that site, do they have like a number in mind based off of our population as to how many they would like to test? Or is it going to be based on if the numbers fluctuate up or down?
So they did have a number in mind in terms of maximum capacity, and we have not come close to hitting that there yet. But I do not think that they've made that strategy shift where you would test people other than those with confirmed symptoms for the most part. There are first responders and there are certain exceptions to that, but generally, unless that changes, it will fluctuate with just the demand in terms of those with symptoms.
So they haven't communicated that they want to test like 50% of our population or any strategy like that? If that would even be possible.
No, I mean this was announced a couple days before the announcement of the stay-at-home order expiring, and there were a number of sites across the state that the governor announced, and they had targets. But even if we hit the maximum capacity at the Armory and our provider is able to maintain, their peak levels as well, we're still short of that broader strategy that a lot of experts thought would be required to contain future waves. So we're a ways away from that, and right now the capacity even at the Armory isn't near the peak that had been targeted for. But some of that's growing pains. We expect that to improve as the facility goes, and we hope that we don't rise in the curve over the coming weeks. But public health, I haven't seen a public health expert say opening up is going to lead to a declining number of cases. So, but we'll have to wait and see.
And may I ask one more question? In reference to PPE, I know the governor stated that they were going to have the state marketplace, that businesses should try to tap their own resources and then use them as a secondary resource. Has the state mentioned anything about getting out to cities PPE resources so that we could have our own marketplace within the cities, or has that conversation not come from the governor?
Well, they have the state stockpile, like you mentioned. They haven't talked about having branches of that stockpile. We can check with them, but yeah, I think they believe they can handle the demand, but we can check.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nagatsky. Now we'll go to the at-large council members. We'll start with Ms. Hammond.
Thank you. Mayor Mueller, thank you for being with us once again, to updating us this evening. I do have, I don't know if it's a question or a concern. We see these images from around the country of masses of people gathering, be it in restaurants or other venues or just outside. And I'm wondering what the, how do we disperse these? How do we convince people that this is just not within the guidelines of what the governor has advised for us at this point?
Yeah, I mean, so the existing, the governor's orders, and then the face mask order. The face mask order issued by the health department is enforceable by the health department, and they are looking to enforce that. Like most actions, a lot of it is most people do follow the guidance and the law and the rules without having to come in and enforce. And you've seen this across the country where states that were slow to impose stay-at-home orders, you saw similar levels of people were staying at home before the governor in their states imposed that order. And now with the easing up of restrictions in some states, you're seeing some easing up in even states where the orders continue. And so there is a large part of this is individual actions and how they feel where we are in terms of the threat. And so that's why it's critical for us to be continuing to share the message that the threat is still there. It still persists. We're not in substantially better shape than we were a couple months ago when almost everyone was staying at home. So trying to influence behavior by the right message, and we are working to develop, figure out what are the effective messages in terms of moving behavior. In terms of the governor's order, he's still enforcing his order via the same avenues as the stay-at-home order, and so there are those state levels of enforcement as well. Again, he didn't do a lot of enforcement actions across the state if you look at the number, and similarly even here locally, we would go after blatant violations. There were a couple large parties that our officers did break up but by and large, we weren't. If people were walking around, generally following, we weren't going and enforcing the stay-at-home order in that way. So a lot of it is just winning the hearts and minds of our fellow residents and convincing them that the danger is still there and we need to be careful. And the better, I know we all agree that we want a unified message and an approach coming from all levels of government. It's difficult. Obviously, there was a moment of changing that when our strategy shifted abruptly from above, and there was not full agreement among all different parties about whether that was the wisest choice. So, but making sure we have a unified message and getting the effective message out so that people behave responsibly and safely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Hammond. We'll turn to Rachel Tomas Morgan.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you again for being with us this evening. I, like others, want to thank you for your communication, and I want to thank you especially for your responsiveness every time I reached out to the mayor's office and to your department heads. I've received quick response, so really appreciate that over the past couple months. I have a question. This is likely not fair to ask you. It's most likely directed to our health official, but when you talk about the curve that we don't want to see, what are we looking at specifically? Can you say anything about the metrics that our county health department are looking at and would be concerned about and would want to take additional mitigation efforts if they see XYZ continue to rise? What are those?
Yeah, we're pushing on them to give bounds in terms of what we might see and what actions might be taken. Because again, if the business community and other organizations are able to plan, seeing, we're starting to move up, and that means maybe in a couple weeks, a limit on social, a greater constraint on social gatherings from our local health officials relative to the governor's reopening plan may be coming. We do not have those protocols developed yet, and by we, I mean our community and our local health officials, and that's something that we have talked about and are working on generating. But right now, we don't have those.
Thank you. And just my final comment, and just to reiterate what you and what you have said before, that this is all our responsibility now. I mean, what has happened really amounts to a citywide experiment that hinges on individual decisions of all of us, and hope that everyone does the right thing by wearing masks and respecting the orders put forth by the health officer. And I know we each carry the heavy responsibility to communicate that message, and also just want to a note to the media how important it is, their role in pushing that message. I appreciate the headlines of the past couple days about needing to be cautious and reiterating the health officer's orders. So want to thank the media for that, and want to encourage them to continue to help us push out those important messages. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tomas Morgan. Now I'll turn to Vice President Karen White.
Yes, I only have one question to you, Mayor. First, I would like to thank you for meeting with us. This is an important time, not only for us individually, but for our city as well. So we really appreciate you taking the time to come and to address us, but also to answer our questions. I only have one question, and that question is that we have seen a tremendous, not to say a tremendous, but an impact in regards to the COVID-19 virus within certain zip codes within our community and also within certain communities of color. So do you have a sense what is being done or what should be done? I do know that Beacon Health Centers have been in the community and trying to encourage, individuals who have the symptoms to at least come and be tested. But are there any things that we can do from a city perspective? But also, how can we, as individual council members, help, especially in those zip codes that have been identified?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the good news of the elevated numbers in certain areas means that we have been able to expand access to testing because those are confirmed cases via testing. So the efforts to get those mobile testing sites and move testing beyond where it was in the first few weeks of the pandemic is encouraging that at least we have that infrastructure in place across the community now. The bad news is that there seems to be emerging disparities here and across the country of where people who the more vulnerable or less just generally that have trouble in normal times are having a bigger challenge in this crisis. And so part of that is it could be communication, and it could be you think of, well, who are the folks who had to continue going to work in potentially challenging conditions and who was able to continue working from home. And there's a disparity in that as well. So as we do open up, there will be, I guess, more of an equalizer because everyone at some point will be getting exposed at similar rates. But in terms of overall health, we know that that is a perennial issue that we have health disparities by incomes and by race in normal times, and those are still present, and they seem to be exacerbating the impacts of this virus because those with underlying conditions are more at threat from the virus.
Do you see anything that we can do as council members working within our, various districts, and how can we help to get that information out to our constituents?
So it's similarly figuring out that effective message to let people know of the threat and what are the ways to stay safe. But as there's obviously my opinion on our reopening schedule, I believe there's been a rush to reopen, and that means that more workers are going to have to choose between staying and getting their unemployment benefits or going to work and potentially putting themselves at risk. And that's a choice. That's a terrible choice to put on someone between being able to put food on the table and maintain your residence versus trying to maintain your health. And that's one of the many reasons why I oppose the quick rush to reopening our economy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate your communication with this council and individual council members as well. And I want to also show gratitude to Committee of the Whole Chair Sharon McBride for her taking the lead on communicating with the council what's going on with the COVID virus and being part of that committee and the communication for that. So I want to thank you all for your questions. I don't have anything at this time, so I appreciate your input right now, Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on. That pretty much was report from city offices, the city office. So there are no special business. We covered special business. No report from city offices. Now I'll entertain a motion, join and rise committee of the whole.
So move, Karen White.
Is there a second? Thank you. All in favor, Ms. Jones, roll call.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Okay. Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teshka,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President White,
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to Committee of the Whole Chair Sharon McBride.
Thank you. The committee of the whole is now in session. This is the portion of the council's meeting where bills are given a second reading and public hearing. I wish to share with you that the bill that will be given a second reading and public hearing have been given a first reading and set for a committee meeting and public hearing prior to this evening's meeting. In addition, you will hear from the chair of the committee where the bill was discussed and the results of their discussion. Ms. Jones, would you please read bill number 10-20?
10-20, public hearing on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, retroactively amending annexation ordinance number 10629-18, Old National Annexation Area, to correct Scribner's error in legal description.
Thank you, Clerk Jones. There is a committee report that this was sent, discussed in Committee of Zoning and Annexation and sent to the council with a favorable recommendation. Is there a petitioner present?
Yes, good evening. Michael DeVita, Principal Planner with the city's Department of Community Investment with offices on the 14th floor of the County City Building. This bill is for the property at the northeast corner of State Road 23 and Douglas Road, which was added to the city through a voluntary annexation in late 2018. The legal description in the annexation ordinance incorrectly listed the property as being in the southwest quarter of Section 29, when it's actually in the southwest quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 29. So the ordinance here would make the correction to the legal description with all the other terms of the annexation remaining the same. So I ask for your approval tonight. I'll be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I will turn to council. Are there any comments?
No.
Thank you so much. At this time, I will open up and ask Graham, was there any comments or questions from the public?
Councilmember McBride, this is Graham from the clerk's office. There has been no one in the chat that has reserved the spot to speak for bill number 10-20 as part of the public process. I yield.
Thank you so much. I will turn back then to council for final comment and discussion. Seeing none, I will ask that someone entertain a motion.
I make a motion to send 1020 to the full council favorably.
Troy Warner seconds that motion.
Okay.
Ms. Jones, can you please give the roll call?
Yes. Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye. Aye.
Councilmember Teshka. Councilmember Teshka.
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. I will send bill number 10-20 to the council with a full recommendation. I will now entertain a motion to rise from the committee of the whole and report back to the full council.
So moved, Councilwoman White.
A second.
All those in favor? Any opposition?
We got to take a roll call again.
Yeah. Okay. Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka. Councilmember Teschka, okay. Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President White,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The full council is now back in session. Ms. Jones, would you please give third reading to 1020?
May I real quick, Chair, please, before that, those are read. I think that I'm correct on this, but if I'm wrong, please correct me. The next few, am I reading this right? The next few will be all about the same business, right? Or am I wrong?
Mr. Davis, that's under resolutions. We got to.
I'm sorry. You're right.
All right.
That's what I was asking, correct me. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
No problem.
Okay. All right. Bill number 1020, third reading of an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, retroactively amending annexation ordinance number 10629-18, Old National Annexation Area, to correct Scrivener's error in legal description.
Is there a motion?
I move that bill 1020, move that bill 1020 be adopted.
I second.
Ms. Jones, roll call, please.
Councilmember Teschka. Councilmember Teschka.
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. We'll move to resolutions then. Ms. Jones, would you please read 2007?
2007, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend designating certain areas within the City of South Bend, Indiana, commonly known as 316 East Monroe Street, South Bend, 46601, an economic revitalization area for purposes of a 5-year real property tax abatement for WSJM-Inc.
Chair, this is Henry again. This is what I was talking about. For purposes of the bill 0709, don't we have the ability to read those together?
And 2011, Mr. Davis.
I was going to ask. That's why I jumped the gun on the last thing.
That's fine. If you want to make a motion to hear all three at the same time, that's excellent.
Well, I'm going to make a motion that 2007, 2009, and 2011 be all read together.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Roll call on that motion.
Okay, Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka.
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, would you please read 2009 and 2011 related to 2007 so we can hear all three at the same time?
Okay. 2009, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend designating certain areas within the City of South Bend, commonly known as 316 East Monroe Street, South Bend, Indiana, 46601, an economic revitalization area for purposes of a 5-year personal property tax abatement for WSJM-Inc. Resolution 2011, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend designating certain areas within the City of South Bend, Indiana, commonly known as 316 East Monroe Street, South Bend, 46601, an economic revitalization area for purposes of a 5-year vacant building tax abatement for WSJM-Inc.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Is there a committee report?
There is. The Community Investment Committee met earlier this evening and bring this bill forward to you with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a presenter? State your name and address, please.
Yes, thank you, Council. This is Dan Buckenmeyer, Director of Business Development and Community Investment, 14th floor of the City County Building. So the 3 abatements and thank you for allowing us to bundle these 3. These are for Midwest Family Broadcasting, also known as WSJM. They are former residents of South Bend and look to come back and invest in a building in South Bend as a result of this support from the city. If we go to the next slide, you can actually see where they are proposing to purchase. It is on that's just south of the post office, just east of the baseball field there. So a long vacant building, and the next slide shows the condition it's in and why the city staff is excited to see this being repurposed. Our worst fears were that this very unique building, shown in the next slide, would be difficult for any company to reasonably want to refurbish based on the fact that it's windowless, it's concrete, it's got a lot of design and rehabilitation challenges. Ironically, we found the needle in the haystack, the company that and use that is perfect for this building. There will be some windows in it. There will be a considerable amount of refurbishment and beautifying of the site and building, which we are very excited about. It really repurposes something that's been sitting vacant for several years. So a win-win-win for the city residents and for the company involved. All 3 of these abatements are for a 5-year term. 2 are related to the property itself. One is a vacant building abatement, which eases the current tax load for the building itself. The next is a real property tax abatement, which for that 5-year period would mitigate the increase in tax value or tax assessed based on the assessed value. And then the final piece is a personal property tax abatement, which abates the taxes on capital purchases. So the things they'll put inside that building, such as the 4 radio studios, radio station studios, offices, and so on and so forth. It's a great investment for South Bend. Were it not to happen, it would continue to pay less than $12,000 a year annually and continue to decline in value. By providing the support, council will assure that they make this investment, that they're able to reinvest as much as possible into the building and the site itself. And then at the end of those 5 years, will more than triple the actual annual tax revenues from that. So absolutely a positive for both the city and the organization. I'll stop there unless there are any questions and allow Mr. Bill Gamble from Midwest Family to give a little more history and view of the project.
Thank you for everyone for allowing me to be part of this this evening.
Mr. Gamble, just real quick, for the record again, your name and address, please.
Bill Gamble, South Bend.
Mr. Gamble, this is Graham from the clerk's office. Could you please give just your mailing address for like a headquarters?
Sure.
Or?
Yeah, sure. Bill Gamble, 6641 Dockside Drive, South Bend.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
You're welcome. WSBT first signed on the air back in July of 1922. It has a long history in being part of South Bend. The original call letters of the radio station were WGAZ, world's greatest automotive zone, which, as I said before, was a nod to Studebaker. In 1925, they changed the call letters to WSBT. As probably everyone knows, it ties into South Bend Tribune, WSBT Television. We were all owned by the Schurz family. In 2008, the radio stations and television stations left South Bend and moved to Mishawaka. Beautiful building on Douglas Road. We were purchased in 2015 by Midwest Family. Now that building has 3 different tenants. It has Schurz, it has Sinclair Television, and Midwest Family. We want to have our own building. Radio stations are difficult to move. It's a once every 20 or 25 year project. Usually you don't move, you just refurnish and re-equip. When we decided we're going to move, we figured WSBT is as much a part of South Bend as any business. And as I said before, we want to celebrate our 100-year anniversary there. And we're looking forward to being part of not just South Bend, but downtown South Bend.
Thank you, Mr. Gamble, for that. I'll turn it over to council. Are there any questions at this time for either the petitioner or the presenter?
No, President Scott, I don't have any. Please, when we go back to the comment phase, I do have comments.
Okay.
Okay.
I do have one question. This is Lori Hammond.
Go ahead, Ms. Hammond.
The 23 jobs that are stated, are those existing jobs or are these newly created jobs that will be brought to South Bend? Are these
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
They're existing jobs now. We're taking existing jobs that are currently here at our location in Mishawaka, and they'll be moving to South Bend.
Any other questions?
Well, one other question. Is there, are you anticipating of any additional hiring?
Yeah, I think we projected over the next few years at least increasing by 3. As I said earlier tonight, I think that's a conservative estimate. We didn't want to put something down that we couldn't deliver on, but we will expect to hire more people. The building has space for that. We're going to be using primarily the upper floor, but we have room for expansion on the lower level.
And the personal property abatement, that's for equipment, am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll open up to the public. Mr. Sparks, are there any comments or anybody from the public wishing to speak in favor or against?
Mr. President, this is Graham from the clerk's office. No one has been has been in a queue for public comment. I yield.
Thank you. We'll come back to council for comments. Mr. Davis.
Thank you. I just wanted to tell the petitioner and the company, I appreciate your reinvestment back in the South Bend. Happy to have you back. Thank you for coming back to the second district as well. We welcome you with open arms. What I will say to you is that that investment in that corner is sorely needed. I'm not going to talk about some of the horror stories I get about that corner or even sometimes in that neighborhood, but that is a transient neighborhood for a couple of different reasons. So I think you're going to provide a level of excitement and some energy to that area to help spruce it up. But one thing I will say to you, and I think that this will probably really go well, there is an active neighborhood association in that area. It's called Monroe Park Neighborhood Association. I can get the information to you, but I would say that as we are moving back through this coronavirus pandemic, that you get in contact with some of the leadership with that particular neighborhood organization and speak with them about what's going on, and that you're coming in and you're helping to raise the area, and that you will be looked upon and seen as a partner as well for the neighborhood. I think that will go over really well. They're pretty active. They're very active. They love their neighborhood, and they just want to see more investment, just like any other place. So thank you again, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, and I will certainly take your suggestions on contacting the neighborhood association. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from council or comments from council?
President Scott, this is Rachel Thomas Morgan. I'd like to add a comment that I wanted to share in committee, and to piggyback on Mr. Davis's comments, I just want to extend my thanks and gratitude to Mr. Gamble. Welcome back to South Bend. We're pleased that you're coming back home, and it couldn't come at a better time, at a time when we're losing jobs. It's wonderful to know that we'll be retaining these 23 and bringing them to South Bend, and creating some new positions moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good comments from both. Any other comments?
Yes, this is Councilwoman White. Would like to thank you and welcome you back home. As they have stated, there's no place like home. And we really appreciate your investment back to our city, especially during these very difficult times. And we look forward to working with you. As Councilmember Davis has shared, he will be connecting you with a very active neighborhood association. So welcome back, and I wish you the very best.
Thank you so much.
Any other comments?
Yep, this is Councilwoman Nazgotsky. I just wanted to congratulate you on your upcoming 100 years. Nazgotsky Plumbing was built in 1922 in this community, and I know what that's like to maintain almost 100 years of business. Not easy, but I would like to thank you for coming back and look forward to that 100-year celebration.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll open up for a motion.
Move for passage.
Second.
Oh, hold on, Chair. Excuse me. I was trying to unmute. When we take the vote for these, we take these individually, right? Because they all work read together. We can't take one vote for all three.
That's correct, Councilman.
Okay, thank you.
So my motion is for
Actually,
2007. I'll move for
we
passage.
would need a motion on all three.
Yeah, that's what I was
So
asking.
I'll move for passage of 2007.
Second.
All right. Ms. Jones, roll call, please.
Yes. Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President White,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Councilmember Nazgotsky,
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Or Ashley Council is entertain a motion for 2009.
Move for passage.
Second.
Okay.
Ms. Jones, roll call.
Okay. Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President White,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride, Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka, Councilmember Teschka, okay. Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
President Scott,
Aye, and thank you for your investment.
9 ayes.
I'll entertain a motion on 2011, please.
Move for passage.
I second.
Okay. Vice President White,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
President Scott,
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, would you please read 2013?
2013, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend designating certain areas within the City of South Bend, Indiana, commonly known as 1702 Robinson Street, South Bend, 46613, an economic revitalization area for purposes of a 5-year personal property tax abatement for Bemar Plastics, Inc.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there a committee report?
There is. The Community Investment Committee met earlier this evening and bring this bill forward to you with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a presenter?
Yes, thank you, Council. This is Dan Buckenmeyer, Director of Business Development, DCI, on the 14th floor of the City County Building. So Bemar Plastics Incorporated is a local women-owned business in the southeast side of South Bend there, southeast side of downtown, if you will. I want to thank Heather and Tricia for their patience, and we'll bring them in a moment. But even in the best of economic times, one of the cornerstones of our work in the business development team is to retain and help to expand local businesses, make them stronger so they are stronger for all of South Bend and all of their employees, present and future. This is a great case of that, and not the best of times. So we hope for your support in helping them to make an investment in about $647,000 worth of new equipment. The great thing about this is, they have been primarily focused in the auto industry. This investment will allow them to diversify and expand their customer base into medical customers, and again, make them a stronger company for South Bend, for their employees, and for their future employees. We plan to conservatively, again, hire at least one new person in the term of this tax abatement, which is again 5 years. Again, this is just a request to help them to be able to make this investment in some tough times and become stronger for our city. So I'll allow Heather and/or Tricia to speak for a few minutes then.
Thank you. If one of the owners would, or one of the petitioners would speak on the, oops, sorry, hit mute. If one of the petitioners would speak on the project, I appreciate that. Please state your name and address for the record.
So my name is Heather Mikesell. I'm the president and CEO of Bemar Plastics, 1702 South Robinson Street, South Bend. Bemar is a 40-year-old company. It started off in the electronics industry. Most of that went to China, and after that they pivoted into the automotive industry. it has been a challenge, although they've been very strong in automotive. Diversification is imperative. I came on staff 6 years ago with 30 some years of experience in manufacturing in general. So with this company, it has seen its fair share of updating. Everything from computers to machinery to people to training. We've been part of many programs. We've done extensive outreach here in South Bend with Manufacturing Day and being part of the city as much as we possibly can. You know, the key for Baymar has been to pivot and to diversify. Automation is key for us, and that's really what we've been looking at and using. We will add at least one job, but we probably will be adding several jobs. It's not a mystery that there haven't been a lot of people looking for jobs in the manufacturing industry, so we're actually excited that should flow more people into our direction. Our push this year, and possibly maybe a little bit opportunistic, is reshoring Chinese tools into our shop and to our manufacturing facility.
Okay, thank you. Did you state your name and address for the record? I don't recall.
I did. My name is Heather Mikesell, and 1702 South Robinson Street.
That's right. Sorry about that. I'm getting old, losing my memory. Right now, is there any question from council regarding this project for the petitioner or the presenter? That's what I like not to hear. So at this point, we'll turn it back over to the public. Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak in favor or against this proposal? Mr. Sparks, is there anybody with comments?
Mr. President, there has been no one to submit any place for the queue. I yield.
Okay, we'll turn it back to council. Once again, we want to thank you also for your investment in the city. And any other comments from council members?
This is Councilwoman Rachel Tomas Morgan. I'd just like to add my thanks to President Scott and to you, Ms. Mikesell, for your continued commitment to our city. It's wonderful to be supporting a woman-owned business and to retain those jobs during these difficult times. So thank you for your commitment.
Thank you, Ms. Tomas Morgan. Anybody else wanting to make a comment? If not, I'll entertain a motion for this bill, this resolution.
President Scott, may I address the council? It's Councilwoman Niezgodski.
Absolutely.
Yeah, before we proceed, under section 2.8, I find it necessary to disclose that Niezgodski Plumbing has done some work for Baymar Plastics.
Yeah.
Thank you for that disclosure. Mr. Palmer, how does that affect Ms. Niezgodski's vote?
I do not believe that this is a substantial conflict of interest. We've talked about this before the meeting. Any personal financial gain for Councilwoman Niezgodski is minimal at best. So other than that, I don't see a substantial conflict of interest which would cause her to recuse herself in any way.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from council? I'll entertain a motion.
This is Rachel Tomas Morgan. I'd like to move Bill 2013 passage.
Second.
Thank you all. Ms. Jones, roll call, please.
Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Davis.
I'm here, Dawn. It just
Okay.
takes some time to click on and click off. It's slow. Just give me a moment now.
All right.
Aye.
Okay. Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisbetsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President White,
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. We will now move on to first readings. Ms. Jones, would you please read 1920?
Sure. An ordinance to vacate the following described property, east end of St. Vincent, east of Eddy Street, from the western boundaries of lots 6 and 7 of Eddy Street Commons, section 2, to the western boundary of the right-of-way of Georgiana Street, South Bend, Indiana.
I'll entertain a motion to send this to Public Works and Property Vacation for 525.
So move.
So moved.
All right, Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President White,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. Would you please read 2020?
2020, an ordinance to vacate the following described property, east end of Corby Boulevard, west of South Bend Avenue, portions of former Eddy Street and South Bend Avenue, right of way and covering the existing cul-de-sac north of Corby Boulevard and south side of Howard Street near the intersection of South Bend Avenue, a triangular piece of right of way within the limits of Old South Bend Avenue, South Bend, Indiana.
I'll entertain a motion to send this to Public Works and Property Vacations for 525.
So moved.
I second.
Okay. Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President White,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
I have a question. I'm going to vote aye. Are those two connected far as location? The bill that we just sent to probably Public Works and Property Vacation, and this one that we're talking about? I have no knowledge of either one of them, so I'm trying to connect some dots.
The petitioners on the
Yes,
two bills are different petitioners, so my guess would be they are not connected.
You're guessing?
They're also two separate locations.
Okay, that's what my question is, but something else is going on. Aye.
Okay. Councilmember McBride. Aye. President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. Now we'll turn to unfinished business. I'd entertain a motion to move the Monday, May 25th, 2020 Common Council meeting to Tuesday, May 26th, 2020, in reverence to Memorial Day.
So move.
Second.
Ms. Jones, roll call.
Councilmember Teschka, Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President White,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
President Scott.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. I appreciate everybody on sorry, hit the mute again. On 03/2020, it was a special proclamation commemorating National Police Week and the Nation Peace Officers Memorial Day. I was going to read that to the council for the record. I don't have it in front of me, unfortunately. I took it off my iPad, so I apologize for that. I believe you all have a copy of that. I have read that into the record at the police department, and they are putting online a virtual fallen officers memorial. They do a ceremony every year. Of course, they canceled it because of COVID, so that is there. Oh, we do have it. So a little bigger, we can read it. If you're so inclined, I can read it if you want.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Special Proclamation 03-2020. Commemorating National Police Week and the National Peace Officers Memorial Day. Whereas in 1962, President John F. Kennedy proclaimed May 15th as National Peace Officers Memorial Day and the calendar week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. And whereas the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge number 36 and the South Bend Police Department hold an annual memorial service to honor all police officers who gave their lives in the line of duty. And whereas among these fallen officers are 15 South Bend police officers: Oscar Christensen, Samuel Cooper, Lewis Keller, Hans Brandt, Fred Bullen, Neil McIntyre, Lloyd Thompson, Delbert Thompson, Charles Farkas Sr., Howard Wagner, Ronald Germain, Thomas DeRue Sr., Scott Lee Severns, and Palazzotto. And whereas, although South Bend was fortunate in not suffering any such deaths in 2019, we should all remember and honor the 146 officers killed in the line of duty in 2019, and whose names will be added to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial in Washington, D.C., together with the 60 officers who have thus far fallen in 2020 and who will be so honored next year. And whereas the number of the line of duty deaths includes the deaths of officers due to 9/11 related illnesses, there have already been and will continue to be line of duty deaths related to the COVID-19 pandemic, for which fallen officers must also be remembered and honored. And whereas, although we implore whatever powers exist to keep all law enforcement officers safe, so no new names are added to the memorial in the future, we must never forget or fail to honor all law enforcement officers who make the ultimate sacrifice on our behalf. Now, therefore, be it gratefully proclaimed by the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, as follows. Section 1, in observance of National Police Week 2020, we gratefully honor all law enforcement officers who've given their lives in the line of duty. Section 2, may their names grow no more. Section 3, may we never forget. Section 4, may their families and loved ones find peace. Signed and approved this 4th day of May, 2019, in the City of South Bend, County of St. Joseph, in the state of Indiana.
Thank you, Ms. McBride, for reading that. And I appreciate every council member for adding their signature to that proclamation. I also want to thank Councilwoman Hammond for her input on adding a line about COVID and their line of service during this time as well. So, and thank you, Bob Palmer, for putting that together, and the clerk's office for finalizing and putting the stamp and seal on it. A copy was given to the FOP, the police department as well. So they both have copies of that. Thank you so much. Now, is there any new business before this council?
I would just like to add that our youth council, we're still meeting via Zoom, and on tomorrow, our guest speaker will be Senator Dave Niskoski. He'll be talking about his political journey and the importance of young people utilizing their voices. So if anyone would like to join in on that meeting, which is tomorrow at 5:30, please let Clerk Jones know so that we can send you the information.
Thank you, Vice President White. Anything else from anybody?
I would also like to ask Councilman Davis if he would not mind helping to contact either tonight or tomorrow someone from the Charles Black Center and the Neighborhood Association to let them know that on Wednesday from 12 to 3, there will be another testing at the Charles Black Center for COVID, and encouraging anyone who has symptoms if they don't mind getting tested.
Do me a favor and just email me the information. I'll make sure it happens.
Thank you.
Thank you.
President Scott, I do have a couple new business items.
Ms. Hammond, go ahead.
Okay, so the first item, enlisting the help of Downtown South Bend, asking them to serve as an ombudsman for downtown businesses who are having a difficult time complying with the county health department's order to have patrons and workers wear protective face coverings. I've suggested this idea last week to Mr. Jeff Ray, who did not seem particularly concerned that this was an issue. I do respectfully disagree. From what I've been able to glean from the media coverage, most, if not all, downtown businesses want to comply with the order to keep people safe as they open up the economy. The difficulty for some, I'm going to assume, is that while they want to comply, they may not have the ability to procure the necessary required items in order to comply. So I'd like to propose that the city, through Downtown South Bend, take the initiative to aid the businesses by periodically stopping by to check up on them, not in a punitive way at all, but in a constructive way. And if businesses are having difficulty procuring PPE, hand sanitizer, any of the other items, the DTSB could offer to assist by contacting the requisite city department who may be able to help. In addition, I'd encourage anyone in the public to reach out to me via email to share their views on this matter to see if we perhaps could come up with a plan. Secondly, the issue that I have, over the last 2 weeks, I've communicated to the Common Council leadership my concerns over the county's apparent suspending or proposal to suspend their leaf pickup, which will invariably lead to burning of leaves, thereby endangering the health of not only county residents, but city residents as well. The leadership took my concerns to the mayor as well as to the president of the St. Joseph County Council, Raphael Morton. I'm aware that Commissioner Deb Fleming is attempting to put together a committee to study the problem. It's imperative that any solution contemplated by the county result in a robust leaf pickup program that will discourage the burning of leaves. With a respiratory pandemic ravaging our country, we cannot take risks of this type. I wish to make the public statement of my concerns and open up this conversation to any city resident who shares my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hammond. Is there anything else? Seeing none. Mr. Sparks, is there anybody there for privilege of the floor?
Hey, Tim?
Yeah.
We're in privilege of the floor now?
Yes, we're going to see if anybody's there for that. Mr. Sparks, is there anybody there?
Yes, Mr. President. There has been no formal request for queuing for members of the public in the chat. and before as well. So I yield my time.
Okay. All right. There's no one there for privilege of the floor. What was that?
I don't want to prolong the meeting. I wanted to touch back on why I asked that question about those two bills over there. And I'm going to ask for maybe your leadership or someone's help with this. Years ago, like in 2008, the council adopted the 80th Street Commons plan, and it was filled with all kinds of goodies. And here most recently, we're looking at a conversation that was had with the Board of Public Safety to install God, what was that called? A substation, a police substation. Didn't know that we were still actively doing things because per the governor's ban, but somehow, some way that happened. My decision to say something about this is only because I know, based on the plan in 2008 that we voted in into current day, that whole project has literally taken over that east side. I don't want to get blindsided again with an immeasurable amount of information to make a decision about something that's going to continue to impact our downtown area. We didn't have a discussion in 2008. As a matter of fact, we thought it was awesome the 80th Street Commons was coming on board and we'll have a whole new retail place. Well, the problem is that was great, but the bad part about it was that it negatively impacted the development in our downtown area. So we have to have a little bit more information and conversations about what's going on and what's connected to 80th Street Commons and the development of it in those neighborhoods as it leads to the downtown area. I don't think it will be smart for us to just blindly say, okay, send it to property vacation and public works. We're going to vote on this for second and third reading and we're going to move forward. There are consequences behind every vote that we take, good and bad. And I'm not saying any of those things that we just voted for were bad or even good. But I think that, and I know that based on experience, I recognize that we need more information, especially when it comes from that area.
I understand, and I suggest that you have a conversation with Mr. Teshka and his committee to talk about that. Downtown, there is some data that needs to be shared with that. One, Kite Realty and Kite Projects, our properties, are the one that donated the space for the substation, not only for our cops to use it, but also for their off-duty cops to use that space. We're just kind of welcome more than anything. The other thing too is we'll see what the impact is to downtown with the COVID virus, but South Bend definitely has been growing. So I think what you were asking for is excellent. We can continue that conversation with Mr. Teshka's committee. One thing I do want to say about downtown, if you haven't, please encourage people to use downtown businesses. My wife and I, we've been purchasing dinner, takeout, carryout on a fairly regular basis. So just came from Cafe Navarre on Friday night. So you're plenty of big and small restaurants downtown that could use the business as well. So. With that, thank you, Mr. Davis. With that, we are adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you.
Good night, thank you.
Stay healthy and safe.
You all as well. Thank you, clerk's office, for helping out with all this.
Good night.
All right. Thank you.
Good night, y'all.